As some folks may know who are watching, the board's rules of procedures are not legally binding, but are basically the rules we've decided to use in operating as a board. The resolution that I'll hand out here in a second would prohibit any votes on land use cases or budget votes happening after midnight. Within this resolution, the board wouldn't be able to limit the speech of citizens. I think that's important to highlight. The Freedom of Information Act states that its, quote, provisions shall be liberally construed to promote and increase awareness by all persons of governmental activities and afford every opportunity to citizens to witness the operations of government, end quote. I'm bringing forth this resolution to our rules of procedure because several recent decisions by this board were of great public interest. And these decisions were made at a time that did not afford citizens every opportunity to witness the operations of government. Just going through a few examples, March 10th, Devlin Road rezoning, 1:25 a.m. The board appointments, that discussion which changed Prince William policy pretty significantly, happened at 1:40 a.m. The preserve at Long Branch, which helped set a precedent of changing the rural character of our community, 2 a.m. The mosque expansion, 4:05 a.m. Supervisor Engie in the discussion about the Rural Crescent and the ZTA, 1:15 a.m. Approving the Independent Small Area Plan, 1:45 a.m. We have many folks living in Prince William County whose day-to-day lives are greatly impacted by the decisions we make on this board. They're working jobs, sometimes two, raising children, having busy lives that probably don't allow them the opportunity to stay up past midnight, much less 1, 2, or 3 in the morning. My hope is that we make this change so that people we represent will be able to witness significant actions of this board, such as land use policies or how much their tax bill will be. They should be able to see us discuss and ultimately make these decisions at a reasonable hour. They should not have to get up early the next morning for work and school and take the time from their daily routines to check the media reports to see what happened with their elected official. This board needs to be more transparent in conducting the business that we have. Madam Chair, just another 30 seconds. That will impact our community for generations. To borrow a phrase, we need to stop this midnight train to nowhere. Therefore, I encourage each of my colleagues to support this amendment so that the votes we will make here on the board are be able to be witnessed by people, our citizens, at a reasonable hour so they can understand what we're doing as their elected officials. So, Madam Chair, thank you very much, and I will pass this out for folks' consideration over the next week. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You know, I don't think it's good to make decisions after midnight either. And I will say I've been looking, and I talked about this earlier, and maybe this is really the time to do it. You know, I've asked other districts what they do, and often they limit board member time and the number of questions that can be asked at public hearings and at presentations. And I think that's perhaps a direction we need to go in. I don't, you know, during public hearings, we can always want to hear from the public. We're not going to cut that off, especially during public hearings. And so I think we need to look at our rules of procedure about how we can actually be more effective as a board moving through some of these issues. And so I will take a look over that over the next week also to suggest some of those, because we shouldn't be doing business after midnight. And we might have to look at only, you know, during public hearings, having public hearing time and not having, you know, public comment time that night, not associated with the public hearings. There are things we can do to get out of here sooner, and I certainly support that totally, that we shouldn't have to be here till midnight or even after. It's not a good way to govern.
Madam Chair.
So thank you very much.
I just have a question for you.
Yes.
Would you also consider the way that you rather set up the agenda, because oftentimes we have so many presentations, you know, in one session, and that also takes up a lot of time, and we have so many questions with back-to-back presentations that's probably a reason why we ask so many questions.
So I will say, you know, I've tried really hard, especially things that are in the evening now when we have land use decisions, that we won't have a lot of things before them. You know, like this afternoon, we had a budget presentation. You know, we'll be finished. We can go into a closed session starting here in a couple minutes at 6:30. And if we needed to cut things off for tonight because the school's coming at 7:30 and we're starting with them, we will do that. I think the key is some of our larger land use issues on those evenings, you know, perhaps we limit the discussion from the board. I've tried to do that during discussion time. And perhaps we limit the number of questions that go on because that tends to be a very long time too. Other jurisdictions do that, and I think that really might be definitely a way to do it, making sure in the evenings, especially when we know that there are land use cases, that we just try to keep it to those cases. I think that's a great
Madam
suggestion.
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Canlin.
Well, I guess if we're not careful, we might find some common ground, you and I, Madam Chair, on this. So that's encouraging. And I did want to just say, it's not, to me, it's not about getting out of here before midnight.
No.
And I think we can agree that it's about making sure that we take these votes when people have an actual reasonable time. So to see them. So I'm absolutely happy to hear that you're willing to look at that and see what we can do as a board.